So in BA templates toolkit or BA toolkit, so BA toolkit is nothing but essentially a set of templates that we are going to use as a business analyst in any particular project. Now the very first question is, where do you get these templates in your particular project or in your particular organization where you have joined in recently? So always in any particular organization, there is something called a domain competency group or team. So if someone asks you to create a business requirement document or functional specification document, the very first thing that you would ask to your project manager is a template to start with, because every organization has their own way of presenting information to the end customer or the business sponsor. So they would give you a list of templates. Using those templates, you have to capture all the requirements or the design artifacts. So if your project manager is unable to provide you the templates, so the second alternative is to reach out to your domain competency group or domain people who would help you with providing these templates. So every organization has a domain competency or domain group to whom you could reach out to for these templates. Now, what are these templates? So basis on whatever artifacts that we create, we have a specific templates for our usage. So we'll start with our use case template first. So if you consider the use case template, so your use case template is something like this. You have to first describe what is the purpose of that particular use case. Then you have to format the use case. What is the format of the use case? For example, you would write the name of the use case, then who all would be the actor in that particular use case. Okay. After that, if there are any precondition, that you have to mention those precondition for this use case to start. After that, you have to outline the flow of the use case. Like, what is the basic flow? Basic flow is like your regular flow. For example, in order to log in into a system, you need to have a username and password. Only after that, you should be able to log in into that particular system. After logging, you would be taken to your user dashboard. That is your basic flow. Now, what is alternate flow then? For example, if you forgot your password, there has to be a flow or there has to be a mechanism in the system which would reset your password, like forgot password. That would go as alternate flow. And then there is an exception flow for which there is no possible basic flow or alternate flow, or there is no way to delegate this particular flow. So exception flow could be the user does not exist in the system. So in that case, you have to go to a new use case, that is registering yourself. So you have to follow what is mentioned in register a user use case. And after that, you have to document what is the post condition. For example, you logged in into the system, then you have to the system should redirect you to the user dashboard. So that is your post condition. So precondition should be you must be already registered into the system. You should be having a valid username and password. So this way you could document your use case in a particular given scenario for a particular project. So this is your use case. Then this is another sample of documenting your use case, like another template wherein you would describe the purpose, your format. You have to briefly describe what is the use case about, what are the triggering conditions that are possible for a use case, who are the actors, what are the precondition, what are the possible flow of events, like in basic flow, what are the steps that you need to take, for alternate flows, what are the condition you have to meet, and for exception flows, what are the condition that has to be taken place, followed by your post condition. And then you would be having certain extension points. Extension points is like I think Kshitij, you are not on mute. Please go on mute, please.
Oh yeah, actually I was waiting to ask for a question.
Yeah, please ask.
Also, in the use case lecture, you showed that we can create a diagram or show it in the Microsoft Excel
Mm-hmm.
and here you are showing it in Microsoft Word.
Mm-hmm.
So we can use either of
Yes, absolutely.
way to deliver, right?
Yes, absolutely. So these
Okay.
templates can be in the format of Word document, can be in the format of Excel sheet, or can be in the format of PowerPoint slides as well. So depending on your organization, domain competency group, this may come to you in any format.
Okay. And can you share these samples and templates with us?
Yes, I would be sharing all of these templates to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So next part is the extension points. So extension points are nothing but if you are having a use case, which is a derived use case, or which is an extension of a particular use case. Remember, we covered extend keyword and include keyword. So if there are any inclusion or exclusion, then you have to mention those extension point over here. And if your use case is belonging to any particular requirement, then you have to specify those requirement here as well. So this is nothing but a detailed version of what we saw in the earlier use case template. So this is how your use case template essentially looks like in any organization. Next, we will see use case requirement validation checklist. Now, why we need a requirement validation checklist at the first place? Because whenever we are writing a use case, like we would be having 1,000 use cases or maybe 1,500 to 2,000 use cases for a requirement. Now we have to ensure that all this use case has necessary set of parameters that has been met or not. For that, what we would create a use case validation checklist. So essentially, we would refer this checklist, and whatever use cases we have written, we would ensure that all of these things are met or not. For example, in the general, whether the use case name is there or not, whether it represents the functional role and purpose of the use case or not. Okay, check. Includes all relevant actor, checked. Avoid ambiguities, omissions, and impreciseness, checked. In precondition section, whether it is explicit in nature or not, checked. Whether it describes the state of the system when the use case begins, checked. Then whether it captures the business situation, checked. So this way, this checklist would help you to create good amount of use case which are similar in nature. So with the help of checklist, you are going to create these use cases. Now next document is your traceability worksheet. Now traceability worksheet is like, it could be in this fashion or it could be in the other fashion as well, like I showed you in an Excel sheet in our requirement traceability session. So here you would explain what are the artifacts that you would be tracing to the requirements. Like requirement A is related to which all requirement. For example, this is another way of creating a traceability checklist like this. You have this requirement in Excel, all this listed down. So against those requirement, what is the requirement ID, requirement type, related requirement IDs, analysis status. This is another way of doing the requirement traceability. So this is another what I would say um, uh, template that you could use for tracing your requirements, either via Excel or via your Word document. Next, we have the stakeholder analysis template. So there are two templates essentially. Let me open both the templates. Now, stakeholder analysis, how we do it? We would group the stakeholder name, the organization, what is his role, business analyst, developer, quality assurance, his role description, and we would mark them as responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So this is nothing but your stakeholder analysis template to create your RACI matrix. This is template number 1, and if you open the template number 2, it is again the same thing but in a different way. So this is how you could create your stakeholder analysis template. Then comes your risk response worksheet. Now, what is risk response worksheet? Now, risk response worksheet is like if you identified some risk in a particular feature or in a particular project, you have to outline the risk. Then, what is the probability of that risk to happen? And if that risk happens, what is the impact of that particular risk? And if you have created any risk mitigation matrix, what is the score of that risk? And what are the actions that you need to prevent to that particular risk? And what is the lesson that you would take after the risk has occurred in your project? So essentially, if any requirement is missing, if given a case a requirement is missed, so how that missing requirement risk would impact your project, you could use this risk response worksheet to capture those elements. Then you have risk log template. Now, what is risk log template? Risk log template is like you have to identify what are the risk elements in your particular project, like missing requirement, incomplete requirement, or requirement change. All those you have to highlight over here, and you have to give them a probability, whether it's P or it's an impact, whether the status is open, closed, and what is the strategy of the risk, whether you would like to avoid that risk, whether you would like to mitigate that risk, whether you have to transfer that risk, or whether you have to accept that particular risk. Now, what could be the risk? Like I said, missing requirement, incomplete requirement, or requirement change. This could be a risk that would potentially impact your deliverable timelines. So for that, you would be using risk log template. So this is template number 1, and this is your template number 2. Same thing, but in a simpler way. Then we have requirement classification diagram. So this I have already explained you. So this is something that is kind of a cheat sheet. You could take a printout of it and always keep handy with you, even if you are going for interview preparation. Everything is given to you in a very neat and clean manner. You can take a printout of it. So it would give you a very high level view of what are the requirement categories and what do they do. If in case you are willing to have a handy document, you can take a printout of it. Then there is risk review log. Risk review log is like how you have created your risk log template. You have to review those risks. So for that reason, you would be having the risk review log, wherein you would be initiating a kind of session with your business stakeholder. Like you would be inviting different people. It could be a mixed bag of roles. It could be a project manager, program director, or whoever you feel like. You would first create a risk log, and then you would go about reviewing those risks. So this way you could create a risk review, and the same thing also happens for your requirement review as well. If you are having any requirement to be discussed, in that case also you could use this particular template. It's both for risk review and requirement review. So requirement review, you know how we review the requirement, whatever we have written. We would be creating any focus group or interview or brainstorming or chat session. We would outline who are the participants, what we have discussed, what are the action items, on whom, those kind of things you would be writing in this particular template. Then you have requirement management plan template. So how you would go about managing the requirement, like what would be the process of elicitation, what are the techniques that you would be using in requirement analysis and design phase, what is the technique you would be using in requirement communication phase, what is the technique that you would be using, what are the activities you would be doing, what are the assumption, if there is a change happening, what should be the process. So like we have covered in requirement planning and monitoring knowledge area, so this template would help you plan your requirement management from a business analysis standpoint. So everything would come in this fashion, in this particular index fashion. Now, in order to review this, we have a requirement management plan checklist. So this checklist would help you how you would go about reviewing your requirement management plan. Like these sections which are there on that particular document, you have to do a formal checking of those indexes by using this requirements management checklist. Then we have requirements attribute table. Now, what is requirement attribute table? So remember, we covered two things: requirement requirement attributes and requirement characteristics of properties. So requirement attributes is like what all things you would be having in a particular requirement. Like you would be having a description, you would be having a type, you would be having a use case ID, source, date identified, planned release, name of the requirement, who has created that requirement, or name of the author of the requirement, who has approved the requirement, verification method, test case numbers, or priority. For that purpose, you would be using this requirements attribute table. Then you have RACI matrix. RACI matrix, as we all know, responsible, accountable, consulted, and so on. The stakeholder name, that is RACI, that we would use this template. Then we would have a RACI chart template. It is again the same thing, but in a different fashion. For example, here you would align who is the person and what is the task, what are his responsibility in a particular project, and then you would outline the RACI format. So here you have an additional role, that is support. Now this particular part comes from your project management. Ideally, BA has only RACI matrix. RASCI is a variant which is used in some support and maintenance projects. So if you are for any reason being tagged or being allocated a support project, then you could use RASCI template. Then you have interviewee profile worksheet. Now what is interviewee profile worksheet? So here, let's say you are conducting an interview session for a particular requirement with a particular stakeholder. So you would write the stakeholder name, the date, the job title, what was his key roles and responsibility, and the other aspect. And depending on that, what is the requirement you have gathered. Now, HR team also use this interview profile worksheet for their purpose. And if you are going for a job interview, the template is same. They use the same template for interview profile worksheet. But we as a business analyst would use exclusively for interview sessions with different stakeholders. Then we have interview log template. So here we would define what all things we have covered, what all the questions we have asked to the business stakeholder, what all notes we have taken, what all things we have discussed, and if there are any additional things needed. So this is your interview log template. Then we have information requirement worksheet. Now, with the help of information requirement worksheet, we would capture all the information related to midstream or downstream system. For example, if you are having a particular text box, so what is the name of that text box? What is the data type? What is the maximum length? What are the allowed fields? Whether it's a mandatory, optional, or conditional. What would be the input, alphanumeric, numeric, or alphabets only? And what is the purpose of that particular text box? So this way you could create an information requirement worksheet, which is very similar to data dictionary template, but data dictionary template is more exhaustive in nature. This is a little bit functional in nature. Information requirements worksheet. Here you would outline only a selective number of elements, not the entire elements like in case of data dictionary. Then we have document analysis template. So remember, we covered a particular topic wherein we encountered that if a business analyst is newly hired and he has to do a interview session with a particular stakeholder, and it is his very first interview session. So what he would do, he would first go through a set of documents. Now after you have gone through that particular set of document, you have to create a document analysis template wherein you have to write what all documents you have gone through, what was the version number of that document, what is the date of that document, who created the document, from where you found the document, whether it's from the domain competency group or SharePoint site or Jira, whatever, where the document is located, and what do you feel, how accurate is the information provided in that document, and what is your input in and around those documents. What is the information you understood from that document? So this is the document analysis template that you are going to use in your business analysis project. Then you have document analysis log template. It's the same thing, wherein you would be having the same set of information. It's the either said as document analysis template or log template. Then you have data dictionary template. Data dictionary we have already covered, like what would be the attribute name, description, data type, maximum length, maximum value, allowed value. So data types could be anything. So if you are having a project which is more in SQL or more into data analysis, then you could use this data dictionary template. Or for that matter, any project would be having a data dictionary template, because every project would be having a UI screen. So for UI screen, you have to create this data dictionary template. Then you have communication plan template. So remember, I covered this thing in a particular knowledge area when I explained you that business analyst
Excuse
needs
me,
to,
Sunil.
yeah.
I just have a question regarding data dictionary. So
Mhm.
for a particular table, we make a one data dictionary, or like all the attributes come in just in one place
No.
of any.
For particular table, from a SQL perspective, you would create a physical modeling from a table perspective. Data dictionary is something you have created a UI screen. In UI screen, you would be having a set of text boxes. What value should that text boxes be? Like it would be numeric, alphanumeric. What would be the length of the value? What is the maximum number of character? It is more mapped to your UI screen mockup.
Okay, so for all the US screens, there will be one data dictionary or separate data
There
dictionaries.
would be one data dictionary, but since
Okay.
Excel has the flexibility of this tabs, so you could create one tab for one data dictionary. So together it would be one artifact data dictionary.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Now next is communication plan template. The communication plan template is like, remember we discussed about a BA needs to capture the mode of communication from different stakeholders. So this template would help us capture those communication plans, like what is the activity, then what is the purpose of communication, who is the audience, when the communication is required, what is the delivery method, what is the presentation method, what are the documentation format, what is the level of formality, and where this communication would happen. So we have to capture those communication plan in our communication plan template during our requirement analysis phase. Like if you are working in a geographically distributed stakeholder project, then we have to identify what would be the preferred mode of communication to whom, and all those findings we have to describe in this communication plan template. Then we have communication needs template. It's if a communication is needed, then who is the person with whom communication is needed? What is the role? Now, in the requirement analysis purpose, what is the process, or what would be his role, or what would be his value addition from giving the requirement? Then, when the communication is needed, what needs to be communicated, and what is the proposed communication channel, email or phone or Skype, WebEx, any XYZ reason. So here you would describe why a communication is needed and who all are the stakeholders you would like to involve. So this is other template that you could use. Then if in case there is a change request coming into your project, typically in agile methodology, you would be using this change request template, and you would be attaching whatever documents are there from a design perspective, like project name, project manager, project sponsor, because change request is something an additional cost to the project. Your regular contract would always have whatever is there in the scope. Now change request is something out of the scope. So a new cost would be associated with that particular change. So that is the reason why we have a cost of change field. So essentially every change request template would be having different cost depending on the nature of the change and size of the change. So you have to use this template when it comes to change request. This is sample 1 and this is sample 2. Okay. After that we have a business case template. So business case template is like we have already discussed what are the things that you have to include in a particular business case, and I have already uploaded a template of business case in that access area itself. That is more elaborative than this particular template. And then you have brainstorming agenda template. So brainstorming, whenever you are initiating a brainstorming session, what is the agenda, what is the session objective, who would be the participant, and you have to describe your agenda in that particular template. It's mainly kind of a MOM thing, like minutes of meeting you take. Even if you send a minutes of meeting, then also it's fine. Or if you want to adopt a brainstorming template, then this is the template that you should use. Then you have business analyst and project management planning sheet, wherein you have to plan the scope, the process, the schedule, the quality, the communication, risk, staffing, procurement, cost, and XYZ part. So business analyst would outline his plan and project manager would outline his plan in this template. So these are the set of templates that you would be needing whenever you are working as a business analyst in a particular project management. In a particular project you are working on. So I have already set up Jira and Confluence to you, and I am going to show you how this thing looks like. So essentially Jira is a requirement, or what I would say, the defects or the development tracking tool. So whatever development activities that happen in a particular project, or I think okay, or whatever user stories that you write in a particular project, or whatever defect you log in a particular project, essentially this is the tool which you use for um, uh, collecting those items, like your development stories or your requirement stories or your issues, defects, bugs, whatever it is. Confluence is a document sharing platform, or if you would like to create any particular page like you used to do in SharePoint, you use Confluence. So it's more of a document management repository. Now both of them are offered from the same vendor, that is Atlassian. Now if you consider the Microsoft side, for whatever functions your Jira is doing, Microsoft side, the tool name is Visual Studio Online or Microsoft Team Foundation Server. And whatever things the Confluence is capable of doing, the tool from Microsoft side is SharePoint. So pretty much more or less they all work in the same fashion. Depending on the vendor, the tools are different, but more or less they all do the same thing. Now coming to Jira, in Jira we have different options in front of us. Like we have epics, then we have a backlog, then we have an option to create a sprint, then we can write user stories in Jira, we can raise an issue in Jira, we can also use Jira to communicate with each other. Now in order to communicate with each other, let me add some people to it. So before that, go to this particular page. So this is the option wherein you could see all your projects. So for example, we will first go through the option and then we will see each of this functionalities, what it does. So let's say you are having a multiple project in your particular portfolio. So you can add multiple projects by using this create project tab. For example, I have created a default project as insurance PNC project. Let me create one more project. Let's say I create a project name as the booster app. Now, once this project is created, I should be able to see that particular project's dashboard. And if I would like to change the dashboard, I click on insurance PNC project. Now this would show this particular project dashboard. So Jira has no limit. You can create as many projects as you want depending on the engagement of the project. For example, like I said, in typical scenarios, there may be a case that your vendor company, the business sponsoring company, they may initiate different project basis on different phases. Like development would be with one company, analysis phase would be with one company, QA phase would one company. In that particular scenario, all of these phases would go as an individual project, and the business sponsor company would be using Jira, and they would be tracking each of these projects in their particular dashboard. So now I have created two projects. You can create as many number of projects in this dashboard. After that, you see the first option is backlog. So backlog is nothing but your product backlog that you create. Now this is a blank project, so there isn't any backlog as such at this point of time. So what I'll do, let me create a particular user story first. Now, when you want to create a user story, you have to click on this plus icon. And if there are multiple projects which are configured in Jira, you have to select which is the appropriate project you would like to create that user story. Now, coming to the issue type, now everything in Jira is considered as an issue, whether it's an user story, whether it's an task, whether it's an bug, or whether it's an epic. They term it as an issue type. Now, depending on your project, these option may be plus or minus. There may be additional items in this issue type as well, like change request, or it could be like your production issues. So depending on how your project has configured this particular drop down, you would see that many items. So as of now, I would create one particular user story and see how it looks like. So I already have a user stories created with me, some of the use cases. I would directly copy paste them over here. So let's say I create this particular user story for registration of the user. So what I will do, I would go ahead and copy these things in this particular dashboard. I can highlight them like the way I want it. Now this star is nothing but your bold symbol in Jira. If anything you want it to make as bold, you always enclose it with the help of stars. Precondition is there, basic blue also. I wanted to make it bold. Then the alternate color, make it bold. Then comes your post conditions. Make it as bold. And wherever there are quotes, and I have copy pasted it from Excel, so I could see some of the double quotes. I would just eliminate those. double quotes, apply proper spacing. And now my description is ready. Now I would give the story as a particular name. Now this UM1, it talks about registering a new user. So I would write, as a user, I would like to register with Deal Booster app so that I can access my so that I can what should be the functionality? I can view my user dashboard. Now I have created the name of the story. I have created the description. Now I have to give some labels. Now label can be anything. Now here the story is pertaining to registration. So I may give the label as registration. So this is a new label. After that, if there are any attachment, you can include your UML, use cases, prototypes, anything you wanted. After that, if there are any issues, existing issues that you would like to link to, then you can link it, else leave it as blank. This case happen when you are interrelating 2-3 user stories with each other. In that case, you would link this issue with another issue. After that, this particular item is assigned to me. So if there are multiple users, you can assign it to multiple people. Now currently there are no epic, no sprint, so I would leave it blank and I would create that particular issue. Now once the issue is created, you could see that an issue ID is also generated, that is deal-1. Now in the same way, I would create 2-3 more issues or 2-3 more user stories. So what I would do essentially is I would copy this thing again and again and create 2-3 issues. Via my Facebook login. Again, it is assigned to me. No sprint. Nothing. Label, I would give it as registration and create another issue. So I have one more issue created. Similarly, I would create one more story. Now this time it should be via Google login. Again, this story pertains to registration. So I would click on registration and go and create it, label as registration. Now here, if I open this particular user story, here I do not have any description because I haven't given any description. So what I am going to do, I'm going to copy paste this description from here and paste it over there, just to increase the number of count of the stories that we are having. Here also I would do the same thing. Go ahead and create the description. Now I have created 3 user stories that essentially talks about the registration part. So what I'm going to do next is go and create an epic. Epic is the main thing for which we are writing the user story. So my epic would be user management. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write user management, and I can describe what this epic is all about. Remember, we covered there is a format for epic. So at this point of time, I'm not going to write that big format, but you have to follow the format of the epic. So here I would write this epic deals with user management functionality, and I'm going to create that particular epic. So I have this epic with me, the user management epic. Now there are no issues in this particular epic, because at the time of creation of this user story we were not having any epic as such in front of us. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to edit this particular user story and assign it to a particular epic. So from here I want this thing to be on a bigger screen. Okay, so here we have created registration. Here we have set the priority, time tracking, and now here we do not have any epic. Now that we have created an epic user management, so that particular link is being populated over here, or the option is populating in that particular drop down. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to assign it an epic. So once I assign it, you see the user management epic is tagged to this particular user story. The same way I would do for all the items. So once I do this, the user management tag is getting appended to this particular user story. So that is nothing but I have included this user stories into a particular epic. So now all my stories are complete. I have tagged my user story to the particular epic user management. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create one more epic just to play around with this particular functionality. Now let's say I create one more epic as search optimization. Here I would give a summary. This epic deals with search optimization functionality. And go and create that particular epic. Now when I click on user management epic, I see 3 user stories. When I click on search optimization epic, I don't see any user story because I haven't created any user stories for it. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and create one user stories in search optimization epic. So let's say I copy paste this particular user story. So one, into the description part, and the user story talk about search based on GPS location. So I would write, as a user, I would like to search for a product based on my GPS location. I have written the user story, I have written the description. Label, I would give them as search optimization, or search would also work as fine. Issue, there is no related issue. Remember, I told you that you always have an option to link one particular user story with another user story. So the moment you click on issue, it would show you the list of user story. If you feel that one particular user story is related to another particular user story, then you can link those user story with the help of this issue. Now, this particular functionality, the search functionality, do not have any relevance or any relation to any other user story. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it blank. I would again assign it to myself. After that, the search optimization epic is already selected for me because I have created this user story under this epic only. If I feel, I can change it to this particular epic as well, but I don't need it. So I would go ahead and create this particular user story. Now you could see a tag has appeared for search optimization. Now I would create three more user story in the similar line. So this particular user story talks about GPS on basis of pin code. So what I would write, as a user, would like to search for a product basis on pin code or zip code. Description, I would take all of this and I would paste it in the description section. Now label, I would give it a search because this functionality is related to search. I would again go ahead and assign it to myself, and the epic is search optimization. So I have created one more user story under search optimization epic. So I would create quickly one more user story so that we have good balance of user story before we begin with other concepts. So this user story talks about scan a particular barcode and search for a product. As a user, I would like to search for a product by scanning a barcode. Again, there is no issue related to it, and the epic name is search optimization. I would assign it to myself. Label, I would give it a search. Now I have 6 user stories with me created in this. 3 user story belongs to user management and 3 user story belongs to search optimization. Now, first I'm going to talk about how do we go on linking this particular user story. Now I'll move to user management and we see over here, let me close it out. In user management, we see there are 3 user stories. Now in this 3 user story, all these user story are related to registration functionality. One is core registration using your email ID. Second way of registration is via Facebook login, and the third way of registration is via Google login. So what I am going to do, let me link this Facebook login with the core login functionality. So for that, what I need to do, I need to go on this option and search for where is that particular linkage item is available to me. It is not available over here. So here I could see link issue, that this particular icon I have clicked. With this particular icon, I can link this user story with this user story. So I would search for that particular user story. The user story number was 4. Sorry, not 4. That is an epic number. The user story number was deal 1. This is your user story number. So I would click on it and I would link it. Now, when I click on this particular user story, I should see a linked user story to it. So this way, not only user story, you can also link your defects, bugs, tasks, anything that comes into your regular practice. Now coming to adding a particular issue, stories are essentially written by your business analyst or anyone who feels there's a need of writing a user story. So they are more from a business standpoint, and if it is a technical user, then somewhat technical standpoint. Now bug is something that your quality assurance team would create. For a particular user story, they would go on creating a bug. Now what is task then? Any idea who creates the task in Jira?
Task is estimated in number of hours and business analyst creates it.
No. Task is essentially created by your development team. Okay. So
Okay.
whenever you write a user story, the development team would analyze that particular user story and they would create different tasks, because when you are creating a user story, you are writing it from a business standpoint, like what is the functionality. If we consider this user registration functionality, then there would be a number of UI elements in creating that functionality. For example, you would be having users full name, then users address, users what I would say email address, users contact number, then users alternate method, and then you would go about registering that particular user. Now for development team, they have the option to break this activity into different technical tasks. So in first task, they would say that I would create the UI for it. In the second task, they would say I would create a database design for it. In the third task, they would say I would write the logic for it. In the fourth task, they would say I would connect UI with logic with database. So this way they can divide the tasks. So for a particular user story, there can be n number of tasks. And same case goes for bugs as well. If there is an aging bug in a particular system, there may be a hundreds or 200s of tasks for that particular bug itself in real life practice. So this way you can go about creating different issues in Jira. Now remember, these are not the only 4 types of issues you could create. Depending on your project, this may increase depending on their project's need. Now let us create a sprint now. Now we have 6 user stories. Now we would create a sprint. So here we would go about creating a sprint.
Hello, Sunil.
Yeah.
So we don't mention the acceptance criteria while creating a user story.
Yes, you have to. Today I'm just giving you the walkthrough of Jira. I'm not talking about how to write user story. This is just Jira
Okay.
walkthrough.
So where do we write those acceptance criteria?
In the
Like, just can you
description
show?
section itself. Here you see the post
Okay,
condition.
description.
In the description only, you have to bold it out, acceptance criteria, and write the acceptance criteria.
Okay, okay.
Now we are going to create a particular sprint. So when I create a particular sprint in this particular tab, I created 2 sprints over here, deal sprint 1 and deal sprint 2. After that, in deal sprint 1, I don't see any issues for it. And in deal sprint 2, I have these 3 issues by default to it. So what I'm going to do, let's say there are 3 user stories in this particular deal sprint 2. I would pull some of the user stories to deal sprint 1. So what I would do, I would link some of the user stories, for example. Okay, before that we have to write the sprint goal as well. So whenever you are creating a particular sprint name is okay. Let's say I give it a more catchy name, the booster sprint 1. The goal of this sprint is to deliver the user registration functionality. This sprint is to deliver the user registration functionality. You can update that particular sprint. So here you could see the goal of this sprint is active. Now similarly, I would edit this particular sprint and I would name it as the booster app sprint 2. The goal of this sprint is to deliver the advanced user registration functionality like Facebook and Google registration. In the first sprint, we would deliver the basic user registration, and in the second sprint, we would deliver the advanced user registration functionality. Now, I have to identify which all are the features that would be relevant to me in sprint 1 and in sprint 2, and this is my actual product package. So basis on this, deal 1 is the first item that I should be taking to the sprint 1. So what I am going to do, I would drag this particular item and allocate it to particular sprint 1. So my sprint 1, it would ask you whether you would like to start the sprint. I don't want to start the sprint at this point of time. So I moved from product backlog the core functionality to sprint 1. Now my product backlog has 2 items under it. So I want the Facebook registration to come in sprint 2. So I would drag it and keep my Facebook registration in sprint 2. Now my product backlog is left with only 1 item. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drag this particular item and put it in sprint 2. Now my product backlog is empty. Now this is how you create a sprint, n number of sprint depending on your need, and you move item from product backlog to that particular sprint backlog. Now sprint 1 has started, sprint 1 got over, the items has been completed. In sprint 2, out of these 2 items, you are able to complete Facebook login, but you are unable to complete the Google login. So what you have to do, you have to move this item back to the product backlog by dragging it this way. So this way you can shuffle between one sprint to another. Whatever is completed, that's fine. Whatever are unfinished or not completed, you move it back to your product backlog again. So this is how you create sprint, add item within sprint, and move item from one backlog to another backlog. And we have seen how to link item from one particular user story to another particular user story. Everyone understood until here so far, or any queries? Okay. Now what I am going to do, I am going to go to project settings and I'm going to add some people. Okay, uh, can you ping me 2-3 email IDs randomly? I want to add some people into this particular project so that we see how to communicate with each other. Randomly ping me 2-3 email IDs and keep your email IDs, mailbox open. You would be receiving notifications. Now what I'm going to do is I'm essentially adding my team to this particular project. Okay, for adding team you have this project setting. Under project setting you have people. So from here you can go and add your particular team depending on who is part of your particular team. So for that I have received some of the email IDs. First add Manjot. Okay, before that I have to invite you people. Only after you have accepted my invitation then only I can ask you to join. Just click on the invitation link that I am sending it out so that have accepted the invitation, everyone. You would be receiving the email. Okay, Anurag and Shashanka has accepted it. Manjot, you are pending. Okay, no worries. We'll do with Anurag and Shashanka. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my project. go back to the project, that is the booster app which I had created, and here I see my particular board. Now here let me go to the backlog. Now in this particular backlog, I see these user stories which we have created. Now I should actually see the users who are accepted my invitation in this particular item. So here you could see your names are appearing, Anurag, Manjot and Shashanka, because you have accepted it. So this way, depending on who all are part of your project, you can assign the user stories to them. So let's say I assign this user story to Anurag. So Anurag would get a notification on his email. Now I assign this user story to someone else, let's say Manjot. So now Manjot would be receiving an email on his inbox. Now this particular user story I would assign, this is assigned to Manjot, this is assigned to me, I would assign it to, let's say, Shashanka. Now Shashanka would be getting an email in her inbox. So this way, whenever a user story is assigned to someone, they get a notification right from Jira system itself, like who has been assigned what activity. Now let's say I would like to add some comments in it. For example, I would add comments like, hey Manjot, can you please review and provide your official sign off for this user story. This is how you take sign off from your business stakeholder in actual project with the help of communication system available within Jira. And let's say I want to keep someone in loop. So I would write FYI Shashanka, FYI Anurag. Now once I commit this particular comment, you should receive an notification. So not only Jira, whatever tool you use, Team Foundation server or any XYZ tool for that matter, they all would be having similar functionality. So this way, you can not only write the user stories or create tasks or raise issues, but you can also communicate with each other. One more thing is statuses in this particular user story. So here, since it's the default version of Jira, we have only these three statuses: in progress, to do, and done. To do as in the user story is not yet started. In progress means the user story has started and it is under progress, and done is means the user story is completed. So once you mark, you change a status, so whoever would be there, the owner of that particular user story, would receive a notification. So in actual project, there would be many other statuses as well. So these three are just an indicative status. There are many other statuses as well in actual project. Now in this particular sprint, you could assign the sprint dates as well. Let's say if I click on start, so it asks me how much time this sprint should go on: 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 week, and so on. What is the start date of this sprint? What is the end date of the sprint? So depending on that, it would give you a burn down chart. Now since it's let's say there are 10 working days in this particular sprint, I have a start date of 5th of August, and let's say end date is 19th of August. Okay, so I have to give an estimate before starting that particular sprint. So let's say I give an estimate of, okay, So an important thing to notice over here, whenever you are starting a particular sprint, it automatically gives you the uh, time window. Let's say, for example, you are doing a 2 week sprint, so you are getting 10 working days. So 10 working days essentially translates to 80 working hours. And if you are taking 1 week of sprint, it is 5 working days. That is 40 working hours. So whatever user stories, I'm canceling it. Whatever user stories you are estimating, you have to estimate within that particular hours or week or days, whatever it is. So for example, you could write 2 weeks, 4 days, 6 hours, 45 minutes. You can do estimation that way also. So let's say I estimate it as 2 weeks. So I have estimated it as 2 weeks. Now let me start this particular sprint. I get this item as 19. Okay, see, today is the first day, and this sprint would, this user story would take 2 weeks to develop. Now I should be able to start this particular sprint. What's the issue with it? Okay, so there may be some configuration issue with this particular default setup, but ideally this is how you should start your sprint. You give the sprint duration, you enter the start date, the end date, and you click on this particular start button. After that, okay, the sprint is started. That was just a notification. Now my sprint has started. After that, you would see this particular sprint, and you would see how much time the sprint is uh, taking. So the sprint is starting from 15th August and it is ending at 19th August. After that, if you have to see, let us go back to this particular board backlog and click on active sprint. It would show this particular sprint is active. So whichever sprint are active, you should see it in this particular option. So let's say there are multiple teams working on that particular project, and your project manager or you as a business analyst would like to see how many sprints are active. You can always click on this particular tab. Next is your reporting part. So in reporting part, you have different options. You have burn down chart, velocity chart, and so on. If you click on burn down chart, it would show you the report of that particular sprint. Now the sprint has actually started. So your burn down chart is flat. As and when you go on burning the points, the story points associated with that particular user story, depending on how many user stories you have taken in that particular sprint, your burn down chart would actually represent a graphical representation. Now we have very limited number of stories and our sprint has right now started, so it is coming as flat. After some days, it would show up the actual way the burn down chart should look like. So these were some of the things that you could do in a particular requirement management tool. Now, okay, any questions so far, anyone on Jira? Anything else you want to see in Jira, or you would like to ask something? Okay. Now moving to the other part, that is Confluence. Now Confluence is a supporting what I would say software component that is um, working like your SharePoint. If you had to compare it with Microsoft, it is essentially used for maintaining the high level communication. Maintaining the high level communication as in like I said, in agile practice, you have very minimal documentation. In that context, how you would do the documentation? You would go and write these things in Confluence board in this manner. So, for example, requirement phase management. In requirement phases, we have a requirement pre-study, requirement discovery, and other phases. So, what I would do, I would just go and create pages in Confluence. So for example, I have already created 2 pages. I would create one more page in Confluence. So let's say we have created requirement, sorry, which 2 pages I have created? Let me have a check. Requirement pre-study, requirement discovery. Now I have requirement elicitation page. So what I would do, I would create a blank page and name it as requirement elicitation. That's the third activity. And I would publish it. So you could see there are 3 pages that I have created. Similarly, I can create one more page like requirement analysis. Then requirement design. And the 6th one is requirement sign off or approval. This should be 4th. Fourth one is requirement analysis. Fifth one is requirement sign off approval. Now I have published these 6 pages. Now what I'm going to do in requirements pre-study, I would like to attach some of the documentation. So what I would do, I would click on plus, upload or share some files. So what is the name of the file? Let's say I would like to add a business requirement. I don't want everyone to be able to view this particular document. Like we covered in BA communication package, not everything can be shared with everyone. So I want Anurag to see it and Shashanka to see it. I don't want Manjot to see it. So I can apply a restriction. And here I would write this is the BRD for business analyst reference. After that, I would create this particular file list. And here I can browse the file. For example, let's say where is my file? I would create a sample BRD. Sample BRD where it is. I would open and I would attach it to the business requirement document. Now you see, in my requirement pre-study, I have attached the document. So similarly, you can use it as a SharePoint. You can upload as many number of files as you want. And in this pre-study, if you would like, you can write some description like, you can write, this is a page for project manager, business sponsor, business analyst. You can publish. Now, the moment you add users to this particular files, they would get a notification what has been shared with them. And same functionality you have in Confluence as well, like you have in Jira. Hi @ Anurag and @ Shanta, please review the BRD and give your confirmation. So this way you can also interact with each other in and around the high level requirement document. So to summarize, whatever high level artifacts are there that you create in a particular business analysis phase, those all artifacts would go under Confluence, and once the development starts, whenever you start writing the user story, they would go under your Jira. So together they are part of the Atlassian product suite. So one ID is applicable everywhere. So you need not to change your IDs. Same ID would be used in Confluence and same ID would be used in Jira. Same case goes to the Microsoft side as well. If you are using Visual Studio Online or Team Foundation server, the same ID works for SharePoint, your Team Foundation server, everywhere. You need not to create any other separate ID. So this how now the question is why this are separate parts, and now they are coming as a product suite. So initially what happened in earlier days, they used to have different tools for different purpose. Now what happened eventually is like for every tool they have to track and manage everything independently. So for that reason, what these vendors started doing these days, they created their own product suite, like Atlassian created Trello, InVision, then Confluence, Jira for different purposes and under same umbrella. So one ID is applicable everywhere. For example, InVision you can use for prototype, Trello you can use for capturing your ideas, Confluence you can use for managing your high level documents, and Jira you can use for managing your project. So all together under one umbrella, that is Atlassian. So same thing goes to Microsoft as well. They have consolidated their different portfolio under one umbrella. Now they are available as one entity in one product suite.